For today's story, we cover an oops as a retired police officer has shot a woman dead during a training exercise happened at a DC library. Let's get started with this. A retired police lieutenant allegedly shot a library officer dead during a training exercise at the Anacostia Neighborhood Library in Washington, D.C. The suspect, who was later identified as Jesse Porter, 58, a former police officer with the Metropolitan Police Department, was conducting a baton training with library officers when the incident occurred. He was conducting a baton training and wound up shooting someone. I'm not sure someone understood the exercise. If you're conducting a baton training and wind up shooting someone, you don't understand the assignment. The victim was 25-year-old Marisa Mayen of Indian Head, Maryland. A 25-year-old is dead because of this officer. Upon arrival at the scene at around 3:30 p.m. local time, members of the MPD located Mayen suffering a gunshot wound. They responded to the scene in which she was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead shortly thereafter. According to a court affidavit, which was obtained by NBC, officers at the training said they wanted a group picture taken at the end of the event. The documents also reveal that Mayen was subject of some playful jokes about her hair and shoes, and she reportedly said she wanted to take off her mask. That was the moment when Porter pulled out his gun and fired, according to documents. Things have gone horribly wrong here. So let me make sure I got this straight. There was a training, and they're like, at the end, let's pose for a group picture. And the 25-year-old says, oh, I'm going to take off my mask. And an officer hero over here says, no, you're not going to do that. Ha ha ha, bang. Wow. According to the police statement, the instructor discharged a single round from the firearm. I thought I had my training gun. Even if you thought you had your training gun, why the hell are you pulling it out and pointing it at him? Jesus Lord. This is reckless. This is murder, in my view. This is reckless disregard. You pulled out your gun and aimed it at them and pulled the trigger as a joke. Go to jail. A DC police officer who's at the scene said they saw Porter performing CPR in an attempt to save. In a news conference, the chief of police could not explain why Porter carried a real gun with live ammunition. At a training exercise, good question. I'm not certain why, they told reporters. I don't have answers as to why a live firearm was at the baton training. Porter was arrested and charged with involuntary manslaughter. That's the least of the problems, man. Upon arrest, Porter turned to the arresting officer and reportedly said, I'm sorry you shot your officer. You got to up those charges. Involuntary manslaughter, man, that is not enough, man. Reckless and callous disregard. Charge him with murder. Charge him with a civil rights violation under 18 U.S.C. 253 while we're at it. That'd be good. Witnesses said that Porter was carrying a brightly colored training gun, a replica in the holster, until the time of the shooting. So they did have a training gun and then apparently at some point exchanged it for a real gun. There are props and firearm lookalikes that are in training environment. They are present in this environment, but why in this kind was at his mind at the time, I don't know the answer. Porter appeared in court and was released from custody until trial. That's a bit infuriating. On any bail? Probably not. ROR'd? Because you're a former officer? Okay. The preliminary hearing is scheduled for August 24th. So that brings us to the end of the story of a 25-year-old person who's dead because an officer pulled out a real gun at a baton training exercise in a DC library. The person's been charged with involuntary manslaughter. It's not enough. There was no reason to pull a gun. There was no reason to have a gun anywhere near the training exercise. This is just a horror show. And this person deserves to absolutely go down in flames for this. As a person is dead, a 25-year-old is dead because of this officer in DC. What a horror show of a case. We'll follow this and hope for a stiff sentence that somehow brings some sense of justice to this. And at least for a moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this case.